Hey there. You look like you'd like to buy me a drink. Hey, what's up, bookworms and Blake Crouch enthusiasts? Mike back today to talk about the 2019 follow-up to Dark Matter. This is, of course, Recursion by Mr. Blake Crouch, a book that when it came out, it was all I could do to not hear about it. It was everywhere. And I was like, who is this guy? And that's when he first got on my radar. You know, actually, I think I saw the previews for Wayward Pines on the TV show way back when. And I think that's when I first heard his name. But it wasn't him really being a big-time sci-fi author until Recursion came out in 2019. It seemed like everyone on my Goodreads was reading it. But guys, I reviewed Dark Matter back in April. Absolutely loved it. Could not say enough about it. To the point to where I said, okay, I've got to figure out how to get Recursion in sometime this year. So I went ahead and delayed it a little till sci-fi September, but that was the plan there. And now I'm starting to wonder, what else can I read by the man? But we'll get there. Folks seem to like one or the other when it comes to Dark Matter and Recursion. I'm going to try not to compare them too much, but I am going to kind of talk about those things and how it kind of related to my read through it. But we begin, guys, as always, with talking about what is the book about. Now, memory makes reality. At least that's what New York City cop Barry Sutton is learning as he investigates the devastating phenomenon the media has dubbed false memory syndrome. A mysterious affliction that drives its victims mad with memories of a life they never lived. That's what neuroscientist Helena Smith believes. It's why she's dedicated her life to creating a technology that will let us preserve our most precious memories. If she succeeds, anyone will be able to re-experience a first kiss, the birth of a child, the final moment with a dying parent. As Barry searches for the truth, he comes face to face with an opponent more terrifying than any disease, a force that attacks not just our minds, but the very fabric of the past. And as its effects begin to unmake the world as we know it, only he and Helena, working together, will stand a chance at defeating it. But how can they make a stand when reality itself is shifting and crumbling all around them? And guys, that takes us to 2019 and Recursion by Blake Crouch. Okay, dipping right into it, guys. Like usual, what makes it good or bad? Starting with the good. Again, Crouch is showing that he is a master at pacing, because this book, while it has parts where he's throwing a lot of exposition at you, never once does this book feel slow. Every bit as fast-paced as Dark Matter was, and in the best ways possible. Guys, I read this book in 2 days, and I probably would have done it in one if I didn't have real life adulting to do. God damn, adulting. It's just the worst, ain't it? But this book was absolutely a page turner. I know I said this when I reviewed Dark Matter back in April, but guys, it is very much one more chapter. I got to say, you got to stop in the middle of a chapter or you're never going to put it down, because almost every chapter has you're going to be like, I got to keep going. I got to figure out what's going on here. So yeah, no slowdown at all. Always keeps you guessing, on the edge of your seat the entire time. Every time you think you've got it figured out, you do not. I think even more so than Dark Matter, this one remains a mystery. And more of a mystery, and while that one was more of a, will he find his way home, this one is very much are they going to figure their way out of this? Because I don't see how, and it just feels so much bigger than Dark Matter. And guys, I'm going to try to stop comparing those. It seems like these two books get compared so much, and I think that's really unfair, because, I mean, look, for example, when you think about any standalone author out there, like Michael Crichton, did we compare Sphere with Jurassic Park? When Stephen King, did we compare Salem's Lot with Needful Things? I don't understand why people feel like they got to compare these two. I guess just because they were the two that put them on the map for a lot of people. But I don't feel like these two books are that comparative. Everybody says it's a lot of derivative, same ideas. For me, I don't think so. I mean, the only thing, okay, look, Dark Matter dealt with infinite realities. This deals with infinite timelines. I guess if that's really what you're saying makes them the same, that's the same people that are saying that Project Hail Mary and The Martian is the same. And like I said in that review, guys, the only thing that's the same in that book is they both go to space. So I want to get that out of the way here. When I'm bringing up Dark Matter, it's a good thing, because I loved Dark Matter, and spoiler alert, guys, I loved this book quite a bit. So the whole idea of people love one and not the other when it comes to Dark Matter Recursion, I kind of wanted to not beat around that. I enjoyed both, and I don't see how anyone else isn't going to. But with this one, I think it's because maybe the science is a little heavier than it was in Dark Matter. Not that it was light in Dark Matter, but I felt like what I said in kind of the Michael Crichton way is that he'll put science at you that you can understand. This one's a little more complex than it was in Dark Matter, and there's a couple times where like you'll feel like your head's starting to pop off a little bit. But like a Michael Crichton book, it does it in a way to where, okay, if you want to get into the science, you can. If the science is kind of going over your head, it's not going to ruin the story for you. You can get the basics and just be fine with this. Very much like an Andy Weir book as well. So I think that people who have read Crichton or have read Andy Weir, you're going to feel okay with the science here. I think it's really good. Never leaves you behind. Like I said, that's a really important thing. He presents some really, really big ideas in this book. And the hook in this, like immediately, chapter 1. Oh, okay, that's an interesting concept. Kind of the chapter ends in a way you might not be expecting because you feel like, oh, okay, I've seen this cop movie before, and it's an interesting way to start it, but I know how it's going to end, and right away it's like, oh, it's not going to go the way that I thought. And the idea presented right there at the very first chapter is like, wow, okay. And with this one, you get 2 point of views. In Dark Matter, you only got the 1 point of view with just Jason. This, you get both Barry and Helena. Now, Barry is a character I enjoy quite a bit because he very much seems like the everyman. There's nothing really super special about him. He's a New York City cop. He's got a heartbreaking past. He's very damaged, very, very damaged in a way that I think can be relatable for a lot of people. A lot of people at that point in their life, he's like in his mid 40s. He's it's kind of life's kind of rode him hard and put away wet. Is that the phrase? I never really understood that. But yeah, he's seen some shit, right? So I think that in dealing with this heartbreaking past as you go through this book, I don't want to spoil it for you, but it's something that makes it very relatable to the reader, even if those kind of things haven't happened to you. You can feel for him, feel real empathy for him. And then you got Helena, which I think is very much a Michael Crichton style character. Of course, you're scientist. Well, the last book we had Jason as a scientist, and this has Helena as the scientist. And not that well, you just got a scientist, so that means it's a Michael Crichton character. No, what I mean is that like every one of his books, like if Stephen King always had an author be his protagonist, it seems like Blake Crouch and Andy Weir are always going to have a scientist be their protagonist in the same way that Michael Crichton did. And I think that helps make them feel like real people. So again, if you aren't able to connect with either of these characters, I think it would be Helena. Much more so you're going to connect with Barry, I think, because you can empathize with him a little bit. Whereas with Helena, you're like, well, that's a shitty situation, but you kind of open that can of worms yourself. You've got to figure out a way to fix it. And fix it is something that she feels very, very responsible for doing in this. And never in a way that makes her unlikable, I don't think. But it's in a way to be like, okay, you got to figure this out, girlfriend, and we're here to help you in that way. But then you got Marcus Slade, and I think he's very on the nose. Everybody's going to be like, okay, it reminds me of Jeff Bezos or Bill Gates or something like that. But he's got more layers than that. When you find out a little more about his past, you're like, wow, I didn't see that coming. And I think he's a little more layered of a villain than you had in the previous Blake Crouch book. So I'm only going off 2 books that I've read by the man, but I can say, okay, look, that serves me right there. His character work is better all the way around with the 2 protagonists and his villain in this. The protagonist is more well-rounded, and the antagonist is definitely a lot more question marks going on than just mustache twirling bad guy. The thing here is if you've got young kids, guys, the dad shitness, it's going to get you. It's going to get you hard because there is some stuff in here that is just tearjerker quality. It's really, really rough to read in some places, and just going through basically this guy's life. It's rough. It's rough, and especially when you see some of the way that he does some things, you've got to relive some of these tragic things again. And it's painful. It's painful, but it really gives the book its heart. I think that this feels really very episodic in a way, but in a fresh way. And what I mean by that is like you could see this being like a season of television or a miniseries, and that you could see where it's broken up into episodes, but it's one overarching story. So that's something that's going to keep it fresh for you. You're never going to get bored because he keeps presenting big ideas. I think that each act of this feels different. I mean, you get your cop drama, you got your family serial, you got your sci-fi spec ops, you got Playing with Time, all of that stuff here. So it definitely feels a little multi-genre. And I think that, like Dark Matter, each act feels different. And I think that that's something that has thrown some people off. But for me, I think that's what helps it stay fresh. And you never really get bored while you're going through this. Now, it's not all good, guys. There are some bad things. Like I always say, these are going to be subjective to you. They didn't necessarily bother me, but there are some complaints that I heard from other people on the Discord that were reading this at the same time. For some people, the romance didn't really click for them. And I'm going to be honest with you, it felt forced to me at first. over the course of the story, by the end of it, I was really, really all in. I was rooting for these two kids. But at first, it will seem like, wow, okay, so you just had to get these two together just because logic dictates it, right? But it actually is earned once it gets going and you learn a little bit more about what's been going on, because this book does play around with time, guys. And that's something that's hard for people. The science is not going to click for everyone. And what I mean by that is these science snobs, the people who dropped in my Dark Matter or my Andy Weir reviews and said like, oh, this is Walmart sci-fi. Same with this. I learned a long time ago with Michael Crichton to not fact check these guys. They probably did their homework. What am I gonna Google this and see, hey, is this actually accurate? I'm just going to trust them. And so I'm not going to sit here and tell you, no, this actually isn't accurate because this, and this. But, if you work in the field, some of these things might bother you. I get that. I understand that. It's like when I watched that movie, The Accountant, and I'm like, what? Yeah. So anyway, the narrative shifts can be a little jarring because this is not told in a sequence order. It kind of jumps all over the place. Now, if you're like a Tarantino fan, you're going to be fine with this. But for some people, it might be rough for them to understand how this timeline is working. I just say stick with it, guys. This isn't like Hanius. You're going to be fine. You're going to figure out the timeline quite easily. It's just at first you kind of might be like, oh, this isn't taking place at the same time, and I'm not sure when this is exactly going down. I feel like he does a great job of giving the dates and the times and all that stuff, and it's pretty easy to follow, but at first it might throw you off a little bit. And like I said, a lot of people feel like this is similar to Dark Matter. I didn't feel that at all, but you might. Now I want to get into why I think that you guys should read it. Again, if you like Dark Matter, I'm really not seeing how you wouldn't like this. If you feel it's too derivative, like I said, I don't get it. That's like saying that every Michael Crichton book was the same because they all had scientists in them. I don't get that here. I feel like the stories are very different. Like I said, you have two different viewpoints in this. You have a much better villain, and you have a different concept, I think. Again, if you're putting all of science into one little category, then yeah, I think that you will get kind of, okay, this feels familiar. Now, I have the benefit of not reading these back to back. Maybe people did that when they first discovered him, and they might have felt like it was just, hey, this feels a little similar to this. The man has a style. I think most authors have a style, right? And you're going to be able to say that when you're binge reading some of their books. You might see some things and be like, okay, you did that the same way you did it in last book. I never once thought, oh yeah, this is just like in Dark Matter. I never thought that while reading this. What this is like in Dark Matter is that this is very, very easy to approach, very accessible for new science fiction readers. Again, I don't think you have to be into the genre at all to get into this. And it's always what you guys have heard me say Michael Crichton about 40 times in this interview, because I think that fans of Michael Crichton are going to like what they get here, because I feel like this is very much the author that feels like Michael Crichton, but more for the modern reader age. Does that make more sense? I don't know. I'll get into it a little bit more here in my final thoughts. I have been recommended authors ever since Michael Crichton passed away in 2008. Everyone like, oh, well, if you like Michael Crichton, I think you'd like this. And every time I would read one of those, I'm not going to get into those right now because that'll start a different conversation and I'll go on a rant. I never felt like, no, that doesn't feel like Crichton to me at all. Just because it has quantum physics in it doesn't make it feel like Crichton to me at all. I think the mix of suspense, science, and story is what make Michael Crichton. And I feel like Blake Crouch is checking the boxes on all these. I feel like this is the next Michael Crichton for me. And I feel like I finally have found this author that I've been looking for since the man, the myth, the legend left us in 2008. So this is extremely gratifying for me, and that I have not had these kind of warm fuzzies for this type of book, for the, I guess you want to call it the sci-fi thriller. I'm not going to have to call it the techno thriller yet, but I feel like this is, the next Michael Crichton, and that is the hugest compliment that I can give someone. It's my second favorite author of all time. So, of course, fans of Michael Crichton, you're doing that Michael Crichton reread with me right now. I think you're going to slip into this just fine. Very much feels like, what if modern readers, they didn't really care for Crichton, but they like the ideas and they didn't write for his writing style. I think that this will probably be exactly what you're looking for. And yeah, Michael Crichton lovers are going to love this. And I think people who like Dark Matter, I really can't see how you would like one and not the other. But I think that if you did like Dark Matter, people will have one that they prefer over the other. And I'm not going to lie, I like Dark Matter better. But this is like the next door neighbor. It's hanging out in the same street with Dark Matter. So yeah, easily probably my favorite book that I've read this month, if you don't count rereads, because obviously, guys, Dune is my favorite book of all time, and I'm reading that in September. So of course that would be my favorite ever. But I always say I don't count rereads. But right now it would come down between this and Childhood's End, probably for my favorite book that I read this month. I don't know. When I do my wrap up for September, I'll have to make a choice between those two. But yeah, guys, another awesome thrill ride with Blake Crouch in this. And the funny thing about this is I did actually ask him to come on the channel and talk to me. His publisher shot me down really quick. It was kind of funny. I just kind of mentioned on Facebook. It was Facebook where I said that I was excited to read this, even though his publishers did shoot me down. It didn't change anything. I mean, I don't expect New York Times bestsellers list to be selling authors to be like, yeah, sure, let me go on this BookTube channel. But he actually responded to it on Facebook and said, he's a little busy finishing his book right now. He had an event, but he's open to doing it in the future. So really cool of him to reach out and say that. So hopefully, by now I'm definitely reading anything that he puts out next. In fact, I'm interested in going back now and reading Wayward Pines trilogy. I know I said that after Dark Matter, but I knew I wanted to do this first. But yeah, I'm going to do it that order. I'm going to read Wayward Pines. I'm going to try to do it before the calendar flips over to 2022 because those look like you could probably, basically all three of those would be shorter than one of the fantasy books that I read these days. So I'm definitely going to do that. And they're adapting this for they're adapting this and Dark Matter. Now, one of them's for Netflix and one of them is for Apple TV. And I believe for Recursion, Blake Crouch is actually writing the screen treatment for it. So that's excellent news. I think that, again, both of those would make fantastic streaming miniseries. So, guys, this is really, really good stuff. I hope you can hear my enthusiasm for this. I think that if you pick this up, guys, it's not that long of a read. You look at his books, again, 300 pages. They are in and out. Again, just like my guy, Michael Crichton. I'm glad I finally found my standalone author between these epic fantasy books. So I hope he writes faster, because I think this guy would be awesome if he did a one a year kind of thing, to kind of give me that break. It's going to be appointment reading for me and Blake Crouch going forward. So guys, have you read Recursion? Did you like it better than Dark Matter? Did you like Dark Matter better? It's okay. There's no wrong answers. Drop in the comments and let me know, and I will talk to you there.